As a news organization, we cover a lot of court cases. Rarely do we need to report on one that is about us, about KARE 11. But a Ramsey County judge is trying to gag KARE 11 from reporting on details of a murder case we believe to be of significant public interest. A case about public safety, how we treat people with mental illness, and allegations of Medicaid fraud. Here's investigative reporter AJ Legault.
Julie, Ramsey County Judge Joy Barcher is threatening KARE 11 with risking contempt of court charges if we show you a document filed publicly on the court website in connection with a high-profile murder case that has wide-ranging implications.
The Ramsey County Courthouse is a place you expect law and order, respect for and adherence to the United States Constitution.
In this country, prior restraints on the press are presumed to be unconstitutional.
Jane Kirtley is a media ethics and law professor at the University of Minnesota. We asked her to explain what prior restraint is and why what's taking place at the Ramsey County Courthouse is such a big deal.
Prior restraint is a form of censorship. It's the idea that a government can stop you, a news organization, or an individual from speaking or publishing something. It's considered the highest level of violation of the First Amendment.
The highest level of violation of the First Amendment. Let that sink in. Here's what happened. Joseph Sandoval was sentenced last week for murdering two men in a St. Paul sober home. A prior KARE 11 investigation exposed how Sandoval had a known history of severe mental illness, drug-induced psychosis, and violence. He was repeatedly found incompetent to go to trial and was civilly committed to the care of DHS because he poses a substantial likelihood of causing physical harm. However, he was released, sent to the outpatient treatment facility Evergreen Recovery, where, in one of their sober homes, he murdered two innocent men. Evergreen Recovery is now under state and federal fraud investigations in the wake of KARE 11's reporting that exposed allegations by former clients and employees that Evergreen systematically billed Medicaid for patient services not provided as claimed.
So people aren't getting help and taxpayers are paying for things that aren't happening?
Correct.
It's a claim Evergreen owner David Backus denied.
That's absolutely false.
However, Joseph Sandoval's defense attorney filed a memo with the court detailing specific failures by the state and treatment record irregularities by Evergreen in the lead up to the murders.
The memo, a real bombshell, was posted on the court's public website where KARE 11 obtained it as part of routine reporting.
We should be able to show you what happened next, but Judge Joy Barcher ignored the requests of victims' families and refused to allow KARE 11's camera into Sandoval's sentencing, despite court rules calling for access.
So this should have been a no-brainer.
This is a transcript of the proceeding where Judge Barcher said a camera in the courtroom would serve no public interest at all. With no camera allowed, Judge Barcher then also issued this protective order for the Sandoval sentencing memo, saying it was made public in error. Judge Barcher then ordered the media to destroy any copies and it not be published or publicly exhibited.
That's a pretty extraordinary step to take, and I would say violates the First Amendment to the Constitution.
That pesky First Amendment.
That pesky First Amendment.
KARE 11 just filed a case with the State Court of Appeals seeking to have Judge Barcher's unconstitutional order prohibited from being enforced. Julie.
Ramsey County judge's assault on the First Amendment has been overturned. The Minnesota Court of Appeals reversed Ramsey County Judge Joy Barcher's unconstitutional gag order in a double murder case that's also tied to a federal raid on a Twin Cities addiction treatment provider. Investigative reporter AJ Legault has the new developments.
Judge Joy Barcher ordered KARE 11 to destroy and not report on this publicly filed sentencing memo from a high-profile murder case with wide-ranging implications. The state appeals court just ruled we have every right to report on what's in this document. Here's some of what Judge Barcher tried to keep from the public.
Joseph Sandoval was sentenced last month for murdering two men in a St. Paul sober home. But in this sentencing memo KARE 11 is now free to report on, Sandoval's attorney makes the case there's blood on more hands than just her clients. She wrote, "It would be a mischaracterization to say Mr. Sandoval was alone in responsibility for this loss of life." A prior CARE 11 investigation exposed Sandoval's known history of severe mental illness, drug-induced psychosis, and violence. He was repeatedly found incompetent to go to trial and was civilly committed to the care of DHS because he poses a substantial likelihood of causing physical harm. However, he was released. The sentencing memo quotes treatment records that claim it was due to staff shortages. DHS sent him to the outpatient treatment facility Evergreen Recovery, run by husband and wife David Backus and Sean Grigo.
Get a life.
Evergreen was recently raided by the FBI in the wake of CARE 11's reporting that exposed allegations they systematically billed Medicaid for millions of dollars in patient services not provided as claimed.
We didn't steal millions of dollars, girl. Read the state statute. Have a good f***ing life.
Everything you've said is false. Everything you said is slander, and will be availed to the court. I promise you that.
What is being unveiled in the Sandoval court memo is claims Evergreen Recovery allowed Mr. Sandoval to use illegal substances. Throughout his time there, he had positive urinalysis drug screenings, often missed other drug tests and treatment, and many of his provider's notes appear to be copy and pasted from week to week. It was in a drug-fueled psychosis Sandoval murdered 2 innocent men inside an Evergreen sober home. The memo concludes the systems put in place to care for Mr. Sandoval failed.
The cost of those failures is 2 men dead and another known to be in desperate need of treatment and help, who will now spend decades in prison for murders he does not even remember committing. You can read the full Court of Appeals ruling on Judge Barcher's unconstitutional order on KARE11.com. For KARE 11 Investigates, I'm AJ Legault.
A double murder, allegations of Medicaid fraud, and the state's failure to adequately care for a profoundly mentally ill man. It's a case KARE 11 Investigates has been digging into for nearly 2 years. And we want to warn you, some of the content is graphic. Here's AJ Legault with his latest findings in Recovery, Inc.
October 20th, 2022.
Someone's in the house with their bloody face.
St. Paul police rush to a Lawson Ave sober home for a reported murder.
The victim in basement, unresponsive.
A man spotted in the alley, covered in blood.
They were taking the guy in the back into custody right now. The TV kept saying, take your opportunity.
The TV kept saying, take your opportunity.
The TV said they're going to kill me.
Joseph Sandoval's story sounds like madness.
The TV told me that. When I was watching Dragon Ball Z.
2 victims were found inside, killed with a knife and hammer.
It just doesn't make sense.
Marcia Murphy's son Jason was a handyman at the house, working in the basement. What happened here with her son's murder and the murder of John Wentz, an Army veteran living in the sober home, left her with so many unanswered questions.
And hopefully maybe someday we'll have some answers.
The biggest question, why was Joseph Sandoval even at the sober home? Joseph himself told investigators he wasn't where he belonged.
I'm supposed to be in a hospital. I'm not even supposed to be outside.
He was right. At the time of the murders, Joseph was under a court-ordered civil commitment. He had a known history of severe mental illness, drug-induced psychosis, and violence. Records show, after his arrest, he has to have both legs shackled to a hospital bed because I don't know what I'll do. His past proves that.
911, what is the address of the emergency?
2 years before the sober home killings,
Well, I just had a guy burst through my door and smash a couple of my windows.
Brian Plunger's Minneapolis home invaded.
He's just breaking random in my house. He's all bloody.
Were you able to tell pretty quickly that this was a man having a mental health crisis?
Like, my immediate impression was, whoa, this guy needs some help.
Police came and took Joseph to HCMC. He didn't stay long. Weeks later, he attacked people with a knife, this time taken to jail where, unprovoked, he beat another inmate with a broom. Charges in that case were eventually dismissed because Sandoval was mentally incompetent to go to trial. He was released. His violence escalated. Joseph stole a cab. Led police on a wild chase.
Southbound Portland.
Slammed into a pedestrian.
He just ran somebody right over.
Not once.
I'm a dude on the ground, and he drives directly for me.
but twice.
You think he was trying to kill you?
Yes.
Sandoval again found incompetent to stand trial. This time, a judge ruled he poses a substantial likelihood of causing physical harm, so ordered him civilly committed. Joseph was sent to state-run, locked, supervised treatment in Anoka. But records show, due to staff shortages, he was discharged to Evergreen Recovery in St. Paul. This place, the state dumped Joseph, Carol Evans' investigation discovered, was an environment where violence and drug use was common. Dead people found inside their sober homes overdosed, an all too frequent occurrence. Joseph's attorney said at Evergreen he repeatedly tested positive for drugs, and his treatment records appear to be copied and pasted from week to week.
I saw this all the time with people at Evergreen. They weren't getting treatment. They were being billed for treatment, but they weren't getting treated.
Daniel Dwyer is a licensed drug counselor. He says he quit working at Evergreen in 2023 when he discovered evidence of false billing. But he didn't know until Carol Evans showed him that his name was tied to the Sandoval murders.
It's not just a black eye. I mean, it's a punch to the gut.
Carol Evans uncovered internal Evergreen records that claim Joseph Sandoval was in a group treatment session with Daniel at 4:15 p.m. on October 20th, 2022. The records state client appeared to participate in group.
I clearly did not make this.
Was it possible for Joseph Sandoval to be in your group at 4:15?
It was not possible.
Not possible because that's the exact same time Joseph was 6 miles away committing a double murder. Daniel points out the record was signed not by him, but by one of Evergreen's owners, Sean Grigo.
And it's signed by your wife, Sean. At that exact same time, he's charged with murdering 2 clients in the sober home.
I can't comment on anything related to him.
Owner David Backus, when pushed, did produce another record he claimed proves there was no fraud. What it shows is, on October 26th, 6 days after the murders, they changed the original record and marked Joseph absent from treatment that afternoon.
Nothing was billed for it.
However, Carol Evans' investigation exposed allegations.
And just bill.
By whistleblowers and clients claiming Evergreen routinely billed taxpayer-funded Medicaid for treatment that never happened.
I was not in group all of those days.
What would you call this then?
Falsified records.
At the same time, Evergreen's owners were living a lavish lifestyle of high-dollar cars and travel on private jets. In the wake of those reports, the FBI raided Evergreen. They allege systemic fraudulent practices, resulting in at least $28 million in fraudulent billing. A grand jury now issuing subpoenas. To date, Evergreen's owners deny all wrongdoing.
We didn't steal millions of dollars, girl. Read the state statute. Have a good life.
More than 2 years after seemingly incomprehensible murders, answers like how and why for a grieving mom.
I love this picture. I feel like he smiles at me every day.
Finally coming to light. But answers don't fill voids.
It was our last day together.
Joseph Sandoval pled guilty in July and will spend decades in prison for murders he does not even remember committing. Referencing the treatment failures, his lawyer told the court he is, quote, not alone in responsibility for the loss of life. For Carol Evans Investigates, I'm AJ Legault.